buttons because I will screw it up. Oh, there we go.
Hey everybody, hey C's. Hey C's, can you hear me?
Maybe press the microphone button again.
Hey C's. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me on the call? Yeah, you can hear us?
Sounds garbled.
Okay, cool, perfect. Just want to make sure. All right, I'm gonna have you guys on mute until we get started. Never mind. I don't think we can't put him on mute, right? No. So you guys.
Yeah, go to your, okay, click, got it. Okay, now, the little icon on the left with the microphone, and then the big picture,
So I don't
that one, click it.
I think the mic's giving feedback too.
Right.
All right, guys. So we can hear you. If you could mute your phone, Cease.
Marge, does they even need the mic? Because it's coming volume over to the speaker, so does they even need a
Well,
mic?
no one on Facebook would be able to hear them talk unless the microphone is on.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to tell them to identify themselves every time they talk, because otherwise we won't. And you identify them and say, all right, you, Cease, you talk, or Aaronella, you talk, or.
All right, if you are on the speaker on the call right now, if you could mute your phone.
I think they're trying to watch it on Facebook and talk on the phone at the same time.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Mary Beth said she's trying to get me muted too. Says password invalid. That's the password that they set up for us. Hey guys, can you hear me?
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
They're not hearing him.
What, can we, do we have their emails? Can we, like, maybe the trouble is with us, and maybe we should just discontinue and start again. Yeah, doesn't he do this for a living?
I know Lance knows how to work that, but none of us do, because he always runs it at our zoning meetings.
When we were all remote during the early stages of COVID,
Yeah.
I knew how to do it because Jim gave me a step-by-step
You got a
instruction sheet.
step-by-step from Jimmy.
But once we went back to in-person, I just kind of threw it away.
Hello?
We need better audio visual stuff.
Hello? Good, how are you? Can you hear us?
Is that Mary Beth?
Got it. Okay, we can hear you. Yeah, if you all, we're gonna get the meeting started. If you could, keep troubleshooting, and then we can pivot over to you. For now, if you could just mute, your audio, that'd be good, so that it doesn't get picked up. And then when you wanna jump in, you can just let us know your mics, and we're already live. Cool. And then I don't know if we want to try calling Mary Beth or see if she can. Does she need the ID?
Yeah, I'm sending this, sir.
Hey guys, this is Jim Frank here.
Hey, Jim.
I was on the call. You guys are fine. The conference is fine. A couple of participants are trying to use the browser, the web-based one, which is against the directions that I gave everybody to read. So the reason why this works is people have to call in from a phone. So I see at least one person who's trying to get to a web browser, which is why it's not connected. The audio doesn't work. When we did all the stuff for COVID, all the elected officials dialed in, and we never had problems.
Okay.
So I see one person, at least a remote session, but your setup is fine. I hear you all just fine. The call quality is fine. I have 5 people on here, and there's at least one that's just on the web browser. So if anybody's on the web browser and hears me, please dial the number and enter the conference ID from your cell phone, and everything should work fine. But your audio is coming in just fine from my end.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
I have to keep the line open to keep the conference going, otherwise it disconnects. So I'm going to mute, but
Okay.
if there's any further problem, I'm not sure how to resolve them because I don't have these folks' number.
Okay.
No, that
Hello?
I see 2 people.
There you are. Hey, Mary Beth.
Hi, guys. Oh, my God.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
much better.
I've been
Mary
trying-
Beth, I hear you. I hear you just fine. So you're good.
Okay. Okay, perfect. I was trying to get in, I guess, through that Join Me website, but
Okay.
it's not letting me.
All right, perfect. No, thank you, Mary Beth, for getting on, and thanks, Jim, for explaining that to all of us. We're going to get started, so if you are on the conference call, if you could please mute yourself until
Okay.
you're going to speak, then it would help in terms of feedback and anybody that's talking here during the meeting. And then we'll go through the agenda and give folks opportunity to chime in. If you could state your name before you speak when you're on the conference call, that would help for folks who are listening at home.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay. All right. So I would like to call this meeting to order. If I can just get folks who are here in attendance physically to start off, just stating your name and what role you play, then we can go to the conference call as well to make sure everybody is sharing.
Joe Carmichael, 8th Ward Alderman.
Don Miller, 5th Ward resident.
Margaret Paul, the city clerk and member of the Berwyn Public Health District Board.
Vaughn Kirshner with Waste Management.
Thank you. And then could we get folks on the call to take turns? Maybe we could start with Mary Beth.
Thank you. Mary Beth Arenella, 7th Ward Alderman, Rat Abatement Committee member.
James Frank is here, IT Director.
Clay Riggin, Berwyn Health District. Tanya Hart, resident. And I'm going to speak for my wife, which is usually not a good thing, but Cecilia we're just having technical difficulties. So Cecilia Hardacker, Rat Abatement Committee, citizen in Berwyn.
Thank you so much, everybody, for going through that. I know that we're going through some tech situations right now. We're all new to this, so appreciate everybody having grace for each other and joining us today. So I want to start off to give the opportunity if there's any public comment or any committee comment. If anybody would like to share, any members of the committee have anything they want to share with all of us today before we get started, or anybody on the call.
Is anybody talking? I don't hear anybody. I just want to thank, is it Waste Management who's here with us this evening?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. I just want to say good evening to everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there. And the ones that are here with us today, thank you for being here.
Awesome. Okay, so I think that's all for public comment. I want to move us.
Oh, I have public comments. Forgive me, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I was adjusting. So here I am. This is, I know the third meeting, and I was unable to make the second meeting because I worked and I was closing down classes. But I have periods of time that doesn't always coincide with everything. So I wanted to sort of, I know that there's an agenda today, and there's a couple things I want to point out. And how I'm looking at this and the research that I've done so far is I don't want to battery anybody else with more information about rats, because there is more that I've learned. And I think it will aid us in whatever kind of recommendations, and I would prefer to call them actions, you know, about rat abatement. So when I look at this, I think that the true disconnect for me is like understanding what Berwyn needs on a real city level, because I'm only a resident, and here I am sort of researching things from, an academic level. And also I went to, the New York City has this sort of rat academy, so I went to school about rats, which I'm very excited about to share to the world if they want to know. But like I said, it might be too much information at this point. But if I think about the best practices that the document I put together that you saw last time, and because we do have to go that far back, right, in order to sort of start again, one of the things that is important to me is that I understand what's plausible for the village. I don't want to put them in a position where I'm not interested in making this hard for anybody. I'm really interested in working with whatever mechanisms are there. And so that makes more sense to me, and then I can bring you the right research to make those best decisions, instead of just giving you more and more information, which doesn't, I feel it's going down a rabbit hole at this point. So the two things that I've extrapolated that I think are really important is garbage and a compost element to that, like taking our food waste to another level, which I know is like a whole garbage contract, downturn. And I also think a community person a liaison who really is able to say, hey, you have rat burrows, this is what you do. And or these tutorials, which I think are really important. The next sort of, public comment I want to make is the alley cleanups, and how I know that they've been discussed as sort of these like prettying sort of things, but they really do help identify what's wrong as far as harboring rats. You can see a little bit into somebody's yard that you might not be able to see on the front side. It's very telling through the alley. When I bought my house, the first thing they said was like, the inspector said, hey, it's a clean alley. That's a good sign of a great neighborhood. And so those parts are really essential. And I truly think that the alley program or what we're doing right now is not sustainable because it's exhausting on a number of levels. But I do think that we can empower residents to do their own alley cleanups with piggybacking, forgive me for that, cliche, but like, garage sales, block parties, block cleanups, alley cleanups, those kind of things. And therefore you have block for the captain residents that takes on the responsibility and liability of those. And there's a really great sort of liability and program attached to Oak Park. It's easy to implement if we just even have something like the sort of lodge a complaint to the blight department, or however you log into the Berwyn site and you want to do a garage sale. I mean, I remember it was like pretty plain. So I haven't done it in a long time because of COVID, but yeah. And so I think that it builds awareness of the community. You get to know your neighbors on a whole nother level when you're cleaning and you're picking up, you're finding rat holes kind of thing. And I think that it's really important to have somebody that is that community liaison there to inform people about what issues they possibly could be condoning as far as rats. And there's a couple statistics that really kind of spur me on this. And the thing is that when I went to the Rat Academy in New York City, which is amazing, I might say, and I think I would direct anybody in Berwyn to go to it because they open it up to the world to go to. So I actually said Berwyn in the house and they laughed at me and I was like, oh, Berwyn outside of Chicago in the house, So then they were like, oh, you got some cred as far as rats, right? But there is a rodentologist that teaches this, and veterinarians and park districts are all in unity working on this rat program. And there's actually public officials condoning this and looking for funds to do this. So I think the alley cleanup is really to condone a community. One thing Oak Park does is sort of put these kind of awards to the blocks. And as I was walking, before it got frigid outside, I actually saw one of these enamel signs that says, best clean alley in Berwyn. I think it was 1996. And I was like, you know what? I want one of those. I want to be the resident that gets my neighborhood to have the cleanest alley in my area so we don't have rats, right? And so we work together and we become closer community. So going back to what we have done and what I see in the future is basically an application with liability. And then I do suggest that aldermen come and connect with those residents in order to understand exactly what's going on in their ward, of course. And I think it's an opportunity to be a politician at that point. So I want to end my community comments at that point because I can talk about one last thing. I got a couple statistics that just shocked me a little bit. So if you see one burrow, and that means a burrow system is 6 feet apart, there's 3 holes, and in the middle is a nest, right? And they love like sandwich wrappers, like McDonald's, which is one right down the street, and the chip wrappers, the kids like throw on, the little tiny chip wrapper, they love those to make a nest. Just FYI, you've been floating around, pick one up. And the other thing is that they have 3 holes. One hole is the main entrance, and then 2 other holes are usually disguised in some way by foliage or leaves or something like that. They always have an escape route. You want to harass the burrows, right? But one burrow equals 12 rats. So every hole you see is 3 to 4 rats. That was blew my mind, right? Because I've had several holes on my property, and now I think it was 1 or 2 rats, and now I know it was 10 to 30 rats. Blew my mind. And spring is coming, so I'm not trying to get excited, although I am. And the other statistic that really blew my mind was if you're in winter and you're able to eliminate your rat population by 98%, in winter, you have an entire year until it repopulates. That's how much they love to have babies. If you eliminate your population in summer by 98%, you have 6 months before it gets back to exactly where it was. So this is where proactive rate abatement is where I'd like to make an emphasis. And thank you again for listening.
Thank you. And then can you say your name for us once again?
Oh, Tanya Hart, I live at 1842 Kyler. Forgive me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have?
Hello, this is Steve.
Go ahead.
This is Steve Sardacker from the same address, 1842 Tyler. I just wanted to do a quick update on the FOIA requests that I sent in to our neighboring villages and cities. So I've submitted 7, not counting New York City, and I've received partial information back from almost all of them, except for, shockingly, Oak Park, which is right next door. I actually had to submit it again to see what was going on. But just like Tanya, I have a lot of information, a lot of things that are fairly consistent from one place to the other. The things that I don't have a comprehensive grasp of are things like what the budget is for. So I know that in Elmwood Park, their budget for rat abatement is about $25,000. I don't know what that goes for. Is that for, is that a salary? Is that materials? Is that, you know what I mean? I don't have the details of some of these things to really be able to say, to get a better idea about what we're really looking at. So, and I've got several of the waste management and recycling contracts, which I've been looking at and riveting reading, I have to say. But I'm looking for the details, right? So the things that are part of the contract that say what the plan is for replacing garbage cans with cracked body, broken lid, hole in the lid, all the things that we've been learning are just invitations for rats to the serving up the rat buffet. So that's the thing that we're trying, that's the kind of information that I'm trying to collect and to get some sort of something that's consistent. I got a great document from Skokie. They sent their whole rat rodent program overview that just like New York City, it's fairly comprehensive. It's got great suggestions, but until we really know what the city of Berwyn is going to be able to, is willing to contribute, is going to be able to contribute in terms of tossing resources this way, it's kind of, there's too much information for us at this point to come to you and say, you know, this is what we should do. We just, we're not in a place to know that, so that's why it's important for us to get answers to those questions from the city. I'm thrilled that Waste Management's here. We can hear, ask what their policy is for garbage can replacement, the process for that type of thing. So, so that's what I wanted to contribute to the public comment, and I apologize that I'm not there in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I know we had some folks join us. Okay? Okay. Just want to make sure. No problem. So I appreciate everybody contributing and sharing, and the updates are great. I want to jump to our first item so we can get started. As many of you may know who are on the committee, it's been a bit of a challenge to get information regarding the current process. I think we've been getting some of the updates of the recent actions that have been taken, and you guys have that in your packet, so you have some information to look at that was provided to us, you know, in terms of what the rat abatement mitigation initiatives have been. You know, if you look at the dates, probably starting in 2021 for the most part. But in terms of what's been happening since the previous committee had met and gave recommendations, we hadn't gotten a lot of information until today, and we got a bit of information from the Blight Department. And so before I kind of go through that and just share that out, and folks can have follow-up questions if they want, I just want to share that I don't think it should be this much of a challenge to get these types of answers. And I am frustrated with the lack of collaboration by the department that is has this as their responsibility. I think the goal of this committee, and we've talked about this at several meetings, is to try to bring resources and to help support the department that's doing this work, figure out where the gaps are, how we can fill them. Are there things that can improve? What is going well right now that we can amplify? But without having folks at the table or information readily available or communication, it becomes much more difficult to do that. And so I am going to continue to pursue to have more interaction at these meetings, and I want to get the support of this committee to do that, to continue to push to have folks in this space. I'm also open to hearing ideas of how you all think that this could work. In transparency, I have been asked to meet with different departments around this, around the questions we may have, but it has been, I guess in my perspective, this is a public process, and so I want to have these questions asked. I want the public to be able to see us have this dialogue and for us to work this out as a group, and not just me getting information and then relaying it over to you all, because I think all of us could do that if we wanted to. We can check in and ask questions to the city. But the purpose of this group is to be a working group and to figure out what recommendations and action steps we want to see move forward. And so we need specific people at the table in order to do that. So I am asking for your support and continuing to push for that as committee members, because I think that's vital to us coming up with any type of comprehensive plan. Before I move on and kind of share what they gave us and the answers that they had, does anybody have any comments or thoughts on what I just shared? All right, so as you all have in front of you, and for folks who are watching, I'm basically going to be sharing out some questions that we had as a committee for the city, specifically the Blight Department. And these answers were provided to me by Director Lazara via email. And so I'll read through some of the questions and then kind of share out some of the information so people have a better understanding of the process. So one of the questions was around, like, how do residents report an issue? That was a question that we kind of talked through, I think, as a group and sort of had an answer. But the specific answer from the Blight Department was, residents can contact the city. It'll be directed to the Blight Department, who takes in the call, and a report is generated. I think some of us have seen this before. There's a form stack link that people go to. They can fill out the form and report it online. We also asked, when does Awesome Pests get involved? This is when a report is generated. So Awesome Pests receives an email with case details, address, location, type of sighting, date, and description. And so then they have that information and are able to act on it. What are they obligated to do when when called on an issue? The answer for this was, the area is assessed by pest control contractor, and they determine the extent of the treatment. We also asked if we feel that they're baiting enough right now. And so Blight Department said, based on the available funding, we are baiting to the extent of resources allocated. We asked, are we tracking data? What are we doing with the data? They responded that all pest control actions are entered into the pest control system. The system tracks the data and populates a map of sightings in the reported areas. This helps determine chronic areas and also helps us strategize different methods. And then we also asked the gap question, right? We wanted to see if there was anything that we can improve on based on their expertise, the day-to-day work that they're putting in, which is a lot of work around this issue. And they responded that not that we know of, but there is always room for improvement. The final question was what could help us be more effective? Their response was financially expanding the existing program and including a third-party overview to ensure the pest control contractors are effective. So that was their recommendation. Director Lazar was not able to make it today to be present for this meeting. He did indicate that in an email, but I would like to have a follow-up on this, and I don't know if there's, I'm not sure if there are follow-up questions or more information that you all want to get from them and be able to collaborate with them throughout this process. But I think it would be important to have somebody from the buildings department, the blight department, even if they rotate, even if just someone that can come to collaborate with us on this process, and wanted to get your opinion as a committee, what you think about that.
I appreciate Director Lazaro getting back to us on these questions. A lot of these are one-sentence answers to kind of complex issues, and so I think that this is by no means a sufficient document, and that we would need follow-ups on pretty much every single question on here, in my opinion. Particularly the help us strategize different methods. I think that needs to be expounded upon, and you could probably write a couple of pages on that. Financially expanding the existing program and including a third-party overview to ensure pest control contractors are effective. I would want to know like what kind of metrics we would expect that third-party overview to do, and what exactly that would look like. With regards to the what are they obligated to do when they're issued on a call, the area is assessed and they determine the extent of a treatment, is basically a repeat of what the question is. So they do their job when they arrive on site is what I'm seeing there. So this is not at all an acceptable answer, and we need all these to be expounded upon, in my opinion.
I'd like to, it's Mary Beth. They talk about a pest control system that tracks to see where our chronic areas are. I'd like to see that data, to see where our chronic areas are, to see if that is chronological to, you know, what you have in your area, Rob, or in, you know, in the first ward. I know that that's a chronic area. So I'd like to see, they got a tracking system. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the data. Where is our chronic area?
Thank you. So, if there isn't any other reactions to this, like I said, I think it would be helpful to have someone present or an ongoing dialogue within this process to talk through some of these questions. I'm thinking in terms of next steps with what the city is already doing. If you all are good with me continuing to push to have a representative here, and if anybody has any thoughts on how to do that effectively, I have my ears are open and would love your collaboration on that. But you know, as you all have been on the emails, I've been keeping you guys CC'd on things, so you see the communication that's been happening. Just want to make sure that we have all the right information, we can ask the right questions, so that this process can be effective and we can actually make an impact. So if y'all can signal to me if you support that and me continuing to push for that, I would appreciate it. Okay.
Hi, everybody. This is Marge Paul. Rob, thank you for your diligence in trying to get information, and I support your efforts, and let me know whatever way I could help.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Uh,
Go ahead, Mary Beth. Sorry.
This is Mary Beth. I agree. I think that, you got your answers, right? But I think having somebody physically there, like I appreciate Waste Management being here this evening and looking forward to that. And I think that having someone present from, the building department will definitely be better because we may ask other questions of them. Regardless of the questions that you ask, we might have other questions for them. So I definitely think that anybody from that department would be great to have in, or even on a call.
Hey, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Yes, you can jump in.
Sure. I just wanted to add, I neglected to say this earlier. I did submit a FOIA to Berwin. I thought maybe an official request might get us the information that we've been looking for, because technically, legally, they have to respond to one of those. So, although some of the ones that I submitted to the other villages and cities around did not respond in a timely fashion, but technically they are supposed to. So, I thought that might be another way that we could try to solicit some of that information. But I've really been thinking about what it is that is the barrier. I tried to put myself in the blight department's shoes, so to speak, and really try to think about it. And I think potentially, if we take a little bit of a different approach and say we really want to work with you, we're not trying to be accusatory. We're not trying to say you're not doing your job. We really want to work on this together. We want to come to a solution that's going to be beneficial for everybody. And, I imagine once somebody gets their back up, it stays up. And so it would make it really difficult to get the information that we want if the person or the people that we're asking, for whatever reason, feel defensive. So I don't, that's not a critique of your approach. I'm just trying to think of what can we do to get a response so that we can, really start a meaningful conversation with the folks who are already doing this work.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you lifting that up, and I just want to say, like, in full transparency, and you all, can let me know, and please let me know if I'm not following this, because I really do want to enter this work with this type of approach. This work was meant to be collaborative. I think in the first meeting I had mentioned that this isn't going to be, we're not going to tolerate pointing fingers in this space. It needs to be a generative space. Yes, there might be conflict, there might be disagreement, and that's normal on a committee when you have a bunch of different brilliant people sitting together trying to solve something, but at the end of the day, like, this is a space for us to learn, build, and develop something that is going to improve the quality of life for our community, not, be a trial or a space to call somebody out or point the finger at them. And so I appreciate you saying that should be the approach that we take with inviting them to this space. But I think that's what truly frustrates me, is that I've been trying to use that approach for a few months now without any success. And so I've actually had conversations talking about this exact approach and the way we want to handle these conversations, and still have not seen the level of collaboration that I feel is necessary to achieve these goals. So I do think that with your support, like I said, I'll continue to invite folks and have these conversations, but I think it has to happen in this space with us here so we all can hear the information, and in a way that helps us continue to develop a plan. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm going to move us on to the next agenda item, and that is the research that Cease and Tanya have been doing, and I know they already had spoken on it, so I'm not sure if there are additional pieces they would like to add, but wanted to give them an opportunity to kind of give any additional updates if there's anything else they want to share, and then would love to bring in, we have Vaughn here from Waste Management today, who has agreed to meet with us and answer some questions that we might have about maybe best practices, how waste management can, I guess, connect to rat abatement, and the ways in which they intersect. And so we can focus on that during the next steps section.
Thanks, Rob. I don't have anything to add to what I contributed before. I'm interested in what Waste Management has to say to us. Thank you.
So it's, I was gonna sort of, I just didn't want, can anybody hear me? My name's Tanya, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Do you hear me? Okay, great. So I just want to reiterate what I think I'm sort of tightening down on as far as two focal points without knowing what Berwyn actually focuses on. I think data is important and to support that too, so you can concentrate your efforts. But as far as, you know, community liaisons, and then the other one is garbage. And I think that liaison also might have, you know, particular level of reporting on garbage outside the bins. I know that you know, the bin lids that's in the contract with Waste Management. That's what I understand. And to keep them tight, you know, is important. But I think another level of composting, and I hate to actually say that, if people aren't ready to compost and double bag everything would be another way to, and I don't want to double bag because it's only more plastic in the world. But those are the kind of things that I've really learned about. They're a really great way to mitigate rats if you take away their food source, because they eat exactly what we eat. They I mean, they only travel 100 feet from their food source. So basically, it's our alley in our gardens, and to the other side of the garden in the alley, they have like a smorgasbord. The other thing is, and that's, you know, that I can't believe I said smorgasbord, but I think that that's important in doing that. And then awareness would be those alley cleanups. So I'm just reiterating. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and I think that as we continue to have this dialogue with the city, and we'll talk about next steps at the end, I think then it would be important to start highlighting some of these best practices once we know what has worked, and we kind of dig deeper to kind of start a design process around this and what it could look like to add some resources, additional strategy, and maybe some a budget to this work, a bigger budget. So thank you for sharing that. I kind of want to give Vaughn an opportunity to say hi to all of us and maybe share a little bit about how you know, taking care of waste and waste management, how that could intersect with you know, any rodent issues that a city might be dealing with, and maybe share some of those best practices that you have shared with me and you share with residents, and then maybe open it up to the committee to ask any questions they might have of Vaughn. I know we have talked a little bit about, and you have brought up some good questions, Don, for sure, about, you know, how overflow works, and if there's some things we as a city should be looking at in terms of requirements there for maybe even apartment buildings, things like that. So want to turn it over to you. Just make sure your microphone is on green, and then if you can speak into it, that'd be great.
Thank you, Rob. Again, my name is Vaughn Kirshner with Waste Management, and it's really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk with you about this issue. As Rob mentioned, while back, I think it's actually the end of summer, Alderman Ruiz asked me to a ward meeting to talk about this very issue, and then Alderman Lennon did as well. And in prep for those meetings, I put together just a quick one-page simple bullet, helpful hints for residents. And we talked about this, quite a bit, just going over it. And I'd like to go over them with you. And I have copies here. I'll leave with Rob and pass them around as well. Thank you, Margaret. Appreciate it. So again, just kind of going over, there's, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 bullets. And in the first one says each resident should have one refuse cart and one recycle cart. If they do not have that, they should be calling Waste Management to make sure they have that. Place garbage in a plastic bag and securely tie it and place it in your garbage cart. Now, I've heard several comments about double bagging and everything. I mean, that's up to each individual resident, but it's really key to make sure that the refuse is in a bag and is securely tied and in the cart, not sitting next to the cart. Okay. And that's the next point. Do not leave bags of garbage outside the garbage cart. Do not put garbage in the recycle cart. Okay, that's several reasons for that, of course. But again, it just, accentuates the issue. And just kind of a side note there, with recycling, make sure that you rinse out as best as you can your recycle items, because that little food residue will still attract, rodents. So it's very important to do that. Regularly clean out your garbage cart with detergent. I use bleach, and in summer you got to do it more. Winter, you're not generally going to do it just because of the cold temperatures, but in summer you're going to have to do it more than not. People oftentimes say, I'm not going to do it, can't you just exchange it? Well, sure, we can exchange it, but there's going to be a cost to do that. It's just very simple. You put some bleach, detergent in there, your hose, clean it out, and you're done. If your garbage cart lid has holes, and this is a common issue in Berwyn, but it's not unique to Berwyn. Squirrels like plastic for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they do. We've tried our cart manufacturers tried numerous things, putting cayenne pepper in the plastic, putting different things in the plastic. Nothing's worked. So it's actually the squirrels chewing holes, not the rats chewing holes in the cart. So if you have holes in your cart lid, please contact Waste Management, and I have the number there. If you have a larger family and you need a second garbage cart, you could call Waste Management and get a second cart. There is a price to get that. Okay, you own that cart then, that second cart. And again, I think listening to everybody here, some of the comments, it really starts with each individual resident taking responsibility, respecting their area, their neighborhood, their community, and the city, and just keeping their alleys clean. I heard several comments about possibly doing alley cleanups. I think that's awesome. Rob had sent me a list, as well as Alderman Lennon did, Alderman Fett did. He sent me actually several over the years of cart replacements. And just kind of share with you, just in the fourth quarter last year, we did a minimum of 250 to 300 approximately cart replacements. That's pretty good. And that's really, well, it's replacements / repairs. And that's really what we have to do is keep the garbage off the ground, keep it containerized in the cart, and just making sure the cart is intact and working properly. So again, I've left these with Rob, the extras. This is something I shared at those couple ward meetings. I also shared it with the staff. So they have it as well. And again, it's very simple, but it's just things that we need to do to help prevent it.
Hey, Vaughn, I have a couple questions. Are we still using that program where the drivers have to put stickers on the bins if they're overflowing or if they put garbage in the recycling? Are we
Yes.
still notifying them?
Yes.
Do we have, is that reported to the city in any way, or how do, or are we just relying on people to see that sticker and then self-correct?
In fact, when we met with the mayor and staff in the summer, we developed what we call a hauler call report. So in other words, we either haul it or we call it in because there is some issue, and we provide that to the city, yes.
Okay, that's great. A question too, if a resident was to call for an additional cart and pay the $75, do they have an additional, do you know, do they have an additional fee with the city on their garbage pickup? Or-
That I don't know.
Oh, okay, we'll check with that because maybe that would be something,
Right. To look into, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Tanya Hart here, but I just got a bill from the city saying that our garbage went up, and it was like single-family home, 2 flat, 3 flat, 4 flat. That was the rate instead of how many garbage cans. So we ordered an extra recycling can, but not charged more in garbage, if that helps with that information.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn, I have a question.
I have some questions.
Can we, Don jumped in, Mary Beth, can you go right after? Is that okay?
Absolutely,
Thank you,
absolutely.
thank you.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Vaughn, on the replacement of the lids and/or cans when they get damaged, I've lived in the city for now 48 years. Whatever happened to the program with Waste Management where they had the truck with all the replacement parts on them and they would cruise the alleys kind of like on a regular basis and replace lids as needed or cracked cans or wheels or whatever it needed, general repair. Whatever happened to that program?
Well, we do still have a truck that has all the parts and so forth on it, but they are, going through various communities. So they are covering, not only Berwyn, but Oak Park, Westchester, Evergreen
Sure.
Park, so they're going all over the place.
But, so they regularly, well, not regularly, but do they hit all the towns? I mean, they come and do they still,
Well, it's based on when residents or, city officials or the city call in and report issues, or if they're reported by the driver. So that's when they'll go to those addresses and take care of things.
so I guess what I'm asking is they don't just like start at one end of an alley like at 39th Street and go
No.
all the way to Roosevelt Road and cruise all the alleys and repair cans as needed.
No,
They don't do that anymore.
It would be beneficial, though, if we were doing our rat alley cleanup
Yep.
things, that we, sort of did a list all at once, and then the truck would be able to hit all the broken ones.
Well, and again, just if I may, when the aldermen do send that list in, that's really helps because we can, knock things out pretty quickly within their particular ward. And the truck does spend time, just knocking those out. So.
Well, on the cans, when you're saying the squirrels like to chew holes in the plastic, have they ever tried to redesign the, like the structure of the can, meaning not just use plastic, but let's say like the old
You could,
radial tire where you put metal fibers in the plastic when it's molded or whatever, and when they try to bite into it, they can't chew through it, obviously.
Or
Have
you
they ever
could
tried to
mold-
do anything like that?
you could mold it in the shape of a coyote.
Yeah, there you go. I
Scare
like
the
that one,
squirrels.
Marge. Yeah, with the mouth open.
Well,
But,
actually, to your point,
something
steel
that would-
reinforced, they actually did. Our cart manufacturer tried that. But as you can imagine, doing something like that, yes, would possibly prevent this issue, but the cost of the carts would
The cost would
increase
be astronomical?
substantially, yeah. So,
wow.
our cart manufacturer, our carts are made of probably the best, not the best, but the thickest plastic of all carts out there, so.
Okay.
They're very well-made carts.
Well, I've also noticed though on the carts, especially in the wintertime, those new trucks that you have had for the last few years with the grabber tool that grabs the cart and dumps it, when they squeeze, they don't really have control of that pressure, and I've seen carts actually shatter in the cold when they grab it with that tool
Yep.
to dump it.
Yeah,
And the
unfortunately-
plastic is brittle and it's going to break.
Yep, you are correct. You are correct. I don't know as far as the pressure goes, if they have control on that or not. But you are correct. When it gets cold, plastic becomes brittle.
It becomes
And
brittle.
if they do bust it, they should be reporting it.
All right, and the other thing I was thinking of, because years back when I can remember when we used to use the metal drums, which no rodent can chew through, but on the plastic carts, what if they just went to a inexpensive, like lightweight metal lid, like a combination of a tin or aluminum or something, just change the lid, because it seems, when I notice in the summertime, the rodents, meaning squirrels, will sit on top of the can and chew the lid. They're not going to chew the can itself because there's no way for them to hold on and chew it. So the way in is the lid. So they'll sit on the top and chew a hole in the lid when they smell something that they want to get in and go after. So would it be that expensive to put metal lids on the plastic cans and to keep the cost down?
Metal is expensive. It definitely is. And it would definitely add to the cost of the carts and, raise the monthly rate then because of that increased cost. The other thing, too, to keep in mind is that with metal lids, there's a safety factor. How many kids, take garbage out to the carts, and with the metal lid, it's a lot heavier potentially
Yeah,
than
that's
the
true.
plastic lid, and
That's true.
that becomes an issue as well.
Okay.
I think that these 8 bullet points are pretty concise and simple, and I just had an idea that since the clerk's office hands out applications for block parties, we could certainly print off 25 of these and give them out so that people getting signatures for the block parties could distribute them as they go door to door to get those. And these are some 8 simple things that we could all do immediately. And, as a way of just dispersing this information, that would be something my office could do, and it'd be very simple.
One further thing on that, and I like your idea with the block parties, Marge, but what about sticking these in with the water bill and putting them in English and in Spanish and getting them out just like they do sometimes with other items to get it out to everybody in the city so we don't have to wait on distribution for block parties?
Sure. I mean, that's something that I could ask
Just a thought.
Ricardo Macedo, if that would be a possibility to do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think, this is anecdotal, right? I don't have true data on this, but when I talk to residents, some of these are like the major questions they have, like how do I get the lid replaced? How do I get the brand new? So to have this be more accessible and be
Right.
shared would be helpful in different ways. So I appreciate both of you, and those ideas are great. Thank you, Marge, for volunteering to look into both of those things and also have the clerk's office add that as an additional resource. I do want to give Mary Beth a chance to ask a
Absolutely.
question just for a second because she's been patiently waiting, and then we can jump back if you have additional questions. Mary Beth, you can jump in if you're still.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm
cool.
here. Okay, so I just want to confirm a couple things and then ask a couple other questions. So replacing the lid, there's no charge, right? And replacing the can, there is a charge for a single-family home. Is that correct?
Waste Management owns the carts, and we maintain the maintenance of the carts. If it is due to negligence, though, on the part of the resident has to pay for a new cart.
Okay, but if the squirrels have chewed it up, well, that's more the lid. So, okay, I understand about the cart. How about the lid itself?
The lid itself is same deal. If it's damaged due to general use, Waste Management will repair it. If it's due to resident neglect, then they're responsible for the cost of replacement.
So if the rats or the squirrels have eaten the lids, because I see the squirrels all the time doing that, will you replace that at no charge to the resident?
Yes, yes, it's general,
Okay.
it's damage due to general use.
Hey, let me jump in here, and Vaughn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen some people who have come home from work and they found that their can was damaged, and I think the city was asking them to just make like a police report showing that it wasn't their, they didn't kick it or they didn't drive into it or something. And as long as they have that police report, you would accept that as sort of proof that the person hadn't negligently destroyed their own can,
Or if
right?
it's stolen,
Yeah.
I mean, believe it or not, carts are,
Well, I
also
know on
vanish.
pretty bad windy days, mine ends up like 3 houses down the street, and my first reaction is that someone stole it, but I usually find one.
Thank you, Marge. Mary Beth, do you have any
Okay, and
follow-ups?
yeah, I do. I'm sorry. Another thing I think is a great idea is with the water bills, because that comes out more frequently. What is it, every 3 months, every quarter? So I think having some information in regards to that would be great. Maybe even every other month, like, the first quarter we'll do the road and flyer. The second quarter we'll do the waste management flyer. Or, just as waste management puts stickers on the recycling if you do wrong, maybe even having a waste management sticker with a phone number on our garbage can, so people have it in their face at all times. That would help. I know that, with the aldermen doing the cleanups, or with the aldermen going out there, and I've done it on my lunch hour. I cruise through alleys on my lunch hour. But maybe having a sticker on the can with the phone number to waste management, or like a little, just like you do when, someone's got something they're not supposed to have in their recycling, a permanent sticker on the garbage can with information would be pretty cool. What else did I want to bring up? I know you mentioned you've gotten lists from the aldermen, and I'm not trying to say this to be funny or mean or, not being crazy about this question, but if an alderman gives you a list of lids, are you replacing those for free because the alderman gave it to you versus a resident calling it in?
Absolutely not. Part of our agreement with the city, as I mentioned earlier, is that it is Waste Management's responsibility to repair or replace any cart that is, broken or damaged due to general use. So it doesn't matter where it comes from, whether it be the alderman, whether it becomes staff or resident. We encourage, as I read in my bullets at the start, we encourage residents to call in, so then the staff or the aldermen do not have to do that. So, that's all part of the process and part of the agreement.
Okay, and so what do you think of the idea of, just like you have a sticker warning people that, oh no, this doesn't belong in your recycling, is maybe in the future we could maybe get some type of sticker where we could put them on the garbage cans, so residents have your number. They might be throwing out the garbage and, oh, look, you know what? The squirrel ate this up. Here's the number. Let me call them right now. Any thoughts on maybe creating a sticker with information?
It's something that can be discussed, definitely. There definitely would be a cost associated with doing something like that. Our number is available to the residents any number of ways right now. So, I would hope that they would know where to look for it at this point, except maybe maybe a new resident might not know where to look, but I know that the city has done, I think, a pretty good job of putting our information out there on the website and Facebook and so forth. So,
Okay. And then I just have one last one. So in you know, they're out, they pick up the garbage. If they see a can that's completely destroyed, does the driver take it upon himself to write the address and, you know, make a note that, you know, maybe tomorrow we should bring over a new can? Do you guys just take it upon yourself to do that? Or do you have to find out whether, you know, the resident did this or it was a car who hit it or whatever? How do you guys go about that? Or are your drivers not to do that? Maybe it's not their job to do that, but are they to be vigilant of cans that are completely destroyed or lids that they clearly see? Do they have a log?
It is part of the driver's job to identify carts that are not operational or working. Kind of to our conversation a little bit earlier, if the clamp breaks it, it's their responsibility to, you know, report that. If it has a hole in it, in the cart lid, I'm not sure if that would be reported by the driver. It's more so if they have broken wheels, broken sides, the lid is ripped off, holes they probably maybe would not report, so.
Okay. Do you, so they keep a log then? They do have some type of log, right? Or some type of form that they fill out then?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly how it's reported, but they are supposed to report it, yeah.
Okay.
Vaughn, I have
All right,
another
I think
question.
that's all I got, Rob.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. I'm gonna pivot to Don.
Thank you.
And then I think, did you have a question, Joe?
Yeah, I got a couple. I'll
Okay,
make them
cool. I'll
quick.
pivot to Don and then
Vaughn,
Joe.
back on
and then
that,
we'll come back.
repair, as a resident, this was going back a couple of years now, I called and said I needed a repair on a cart. And she said, first thing she asked me was, what's your address? And I said, well, it's not for me. She says, I can't take the report from you. It has to be from the resident where the damage is at. And I said, why? She said, that's just the way it is. And I didn't think that was a very good answer, because as a conscientious resident in the area, I was going to give her a couple of addresses where the lids were missing or half cracked off or whatever, and they wouldn't come out and take my report, or wouldn't take the report over the phone. So what I had to do is I made a list and I brought it into Ruth, which is one of the assistants here for the mayor, and she made the call and got it accomplished. But they won't take that information from the resident unless it was my own personal cart.
Correct. That is
That's
correct.
what makes it difficult, though, to keep these cans in repair when they won't take a report from other than the people at that residence. Makes it hard.
Understood. But yeah, that's, the customer service department will only take reports from an individual resident.
From the individual,
For their
right.
property.
So she didn't want to talk to me when I gave her 5 different addresses. She said,
I
can't do it.
appreciate what you're trying to do, but that's.
Yeah, well, okay. That's all I have right now.
Okay. Just before, because we are at like 7:08. I know Joe. I'm not even on mic. So just before we move forward, I know there was a question that we had discussed in committee and also outside of committee around apartment buildings and around best practices for how many roll-offs. So as long as we just
I know what
remember to do that one, and then
Yeah.
Joe can go, and then we can see if C has any questions. We wrap up.
All right, well, you stepped all over my question, but I was going to ask what, first of all, I appreciate you coming out here today. Thank you so much for sitting in through our technical difficulties and through all every rat issue that I'm sure is a little bit overwhelming. But so, yeah, I was going to ask that question of, do you, as like a company, have some sort of recommendation idea for like how many cans there should be to a certain apartment, number of units, that sort of thing? Is there any sort of internal like documents that you guys have in terms of guidance on that?
You know, we don't have any internal documents, but typically, you know, like in a community like Berwyn or whatever, we give out 1 can, you know, for refuse, 1 can for recycle. If you go to a 4-unit place, typically you have 1 can of refuse and recycle for each. Once you get beyond that, then you go to the commercial type containers. At that point, I think a lot of it depends when you get into apartment buildings is just what type of tenants you have there. If you have, you know, several large families, you're going to probably need, or the owner of the property is going to need more garbage than probably a similar one with singles in it. So I think it just depends on each individual building that you have, based on, you know, what your occupancy is, and also the type of people that you have in there, whether it be larger families or, you know, singles or just 2 people. So.
Awesome, thank you. Can you go over what you do when you clean out your garbage with deterrent? Do you just pour that in there, like swish it around and dump it out, or like what's I was just wondering what exactly that looks like.
Yeah, I just take my cart, put in a little bit of bleach. Sometimes I use, you know, dish liquid or laundry detergent, put it in there, take my hose, spray it all down. I have a long brush that I get in there and brush the sides in case there's some stuff caked on, which in summer a lot of times there is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but and then I just, you know, dump it out. So.
And where do you dump it out?
Well, that's a good question. I dump it out a lot of times in my garden along the side of the house.
Okay.
That's why I don't want to use a lot of bleach.
Right.
So.
Cool. And then the last question that I have would be for like a resident who they had like a party or something that week and they have like an excessive amount of garbage cans, but it's like a one-time thing. What is your recommendation in that situation?
I would just say, again, securely bag it. Recycle as much as you can. Make sure it's clean. And you know, if you have to, as one of the participants on the phone said, in that particular case, you might want to double bag it, especially if it's, you know, garbage, you know, food waste. So.
Cool. Yeah, that's all
I have another question if I can, when Joe's done.
Yeah, no, that was all I had. Unless you have some of those Chipotle flavored garbage cans laying around, I was wondering if we could request those, but if not, we can move on.
You're good, Mary Beth. Go ahead.
Okay, so one last question is, for residents that, you know, are staying in a 2-flat and they're, you know, the owner's not there. He lives elsewhere. And can a resident call in a can, or do you need to speak to the owner before you do that because there might be a charge for that?
I would say that the owner should be the one calling in, or working through, you know, staff here at the city if there's a big issue and the owner isn't responding. So.
To follow up, Mary Beth, if I can jump in, just to follow up, if, let's say, a tenant was dealing with that issue, maybe they couldn't get their landlord to put forward, you know, the request, is that something that an alderman can also support with still, by sharing the address where maybe there is a damaged can, just like we have been?
Yeah.
Is that kind of like another way they can get support? I know you mentioned the city supporting too,
Right.
but is that just another avenue for someone?
I feel if requests come either from city staff or from aldermen, I mean, that should be sufficient.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Again, ideally, we'd like to have the homeowner or the owner of the apartment, but
Right.
that'd be fine too.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, you know, if a resident, you know, can't get through to the owner, you know, the owner might think, it's just a can, I'm not going to be in a hurry to do that, right? But then if the tenant calls it in and they do get somebody that says, yeah, okay, and then the owner gets billed for it and then, you know, won't be happy because they didn't okay that. So the tenant is kind of at a catch-22. And we all know there's, you know, tons of residents, renters in the area. So And sometimes those are the areas that are hit a little harder because the landlord isn't there to clean and maintain their property. Thank you.
I just have two things real quick, Rob.
Okay.
One of the things that Oak Park does, Tanya told me this, that they actually work with Public Works, and so Public Works works in tandem with the waste management crew to put stickers on garbage cans, so in case it's something that waste management misses or whatever the case may be, if, it's in between when the trash is picked up, they put stickers on garbage cans to let them know that they need to be repaired or maintained in some way. And then the other thing is that as spring approaches and we start hammering out more concrete action items that we're going to do, we will still be doing alley cleanups. And when we do that, is it possible for us to coordinate with the repair truck for waste management to potentially have them come out at the same time?
So just in case, because I know it's kind of hard to hear sometimes with the speaker, we've been doing alley cleanups. Obviously, that's how you've gotten some lists from me. Cease is asking, in the future, if we were to organize maybe a couple blocks to do an alley cleanup, would that be something that waste management can do, send the repair truck out that same day, so like things are getting done at the same time? Maybe they're not repairing on the spot, but maybe they're able to see and talk to the residents and be a part of that event, is what she's asking.
Well, I mean, ideally, as far as the repair truck goes,
Sorry, Cease, if you can mute.
that's something that we can discuss as well. If you wanted someone out there in the alleys as you do an alley cleanup, maybe that's something I could participate in, or maybe the route manager actually too, that we could walk around and, with you guys. As far as getting a truck there on that particular day, again, ideally, we like to have the list so we can be as efficient as possible with that guy, so he can just go boom, 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 and keep going.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Any other questions, Cease?
Nope, that was it. Thanks so much.
Vaughn, I got another one going back on the amount of cans. So you have a single-family residence, they're allowed, or basically should have one garbage cart and one recycling cart. 2 flat, double it, right? 2 garbage carts, 2 recycling. 3 flat, same thing, right? 3 carts, 3 recycling. Where's the cutoff to a commercial unit for a roll-off versus the 96-gallon cans?
I mean, that's a good question, and the contract includes up to a certain amount, and I apologize, I don't know that offhand. That's something that I can get for Robin so he can share it with the group here. But the contract covers single family up to a certain number of units. I want to say it's like maybe 3 or 4.
I would think it was a 3 flat
Yeah.
because if I'm not mistaken, 4 units or above need a commercial roll-off.
Right, so that would be it then. But I can confirm it with Rob.
Okay, and then what I was leading up to on the bigger units, like in my area, we have and it's not Waste Management, Groot has the contract, but they have a condominium unit, okay, of 60 units.
Right.
How many roll-offs do they need to accommodate 60 units?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to calculate that off in my head, but typically there is an equation that they'll work through based on the number of.
Could you get that back to Rob, that information?
Sure. That's a good question. Be happy to.
'Cause,
And again, a lot of it gets back to my comments earlier. If it's a high rise where it's mostly young people, single people, just
Sure.
couples, they're not going to necessarily generate maybe as much garbage as
Right.
if it's more families, that type of thing. So,
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
that equation will give you a basis, but again, a lot will depend on the type of people that are living in the building.
Right, okay. Because at one time, I was told, and this is again years ago, that for every 10 units in a complex, you need 1 2-yard roll-off. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's what I was told. So 1 2-yard roll-off per 10.
Well, if I'm not
Apartment
mistaken,
units.
a yard equals approximately 200 gallons. And then, so you can kind of do the math from that point.
Okay.
So,
And I didn't know if that was a, correct answer or not, but we'd like to know the answer to that
Sure,
one.
sure, I can get that info.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Awesome. So, any last questions for Vaughn? I think thank you. I appreciate you answering a lot of our questions. And I'm sure as we continue, we've talked as a committee that we feel the waste in this city is also a part of this equation. So continuing to partner and collaborate and figure out ways that waste management or these strategies play out in terms of keeping our community healthy and safe is really important. So I appreciate you coming out today.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me, and they were all great questions. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Vaughn.
So the next thing on the agenda.
Thank you.
The next thing on the agenda is next steps, because I think at this point in the conversation, we kind of want to figure out and regroup after the holidays to see how do we want to plan out the next few meetings, like what do we think we need in order to move forward. For me, I definitely feel like there are some things that have been shared. Tanya earlier talked about this idea of turning the alley cleanups into some almost like a permit type process or some type of like application process that could happen at the city level, which is a thing that occurs in Oak Park, and there's a model for it, which I think is really cool. But there are, things that we want to accomplish, I think, in the next several months. And so I just want to defer to you all a little bit and see what do you think we should be focusing on in terms of next steps for this committee.
I think that we still need to get some direction from the blight department, like the steps that they take. And I think as far as like the health district, I don't know if we were done with that, if we got all of our answers on that. As far as I know, in that I can't even think straight. It's been such a long day. I'm sorry, guys. That memo that they gave us last time, showing the bullet points that they had gathered some data. I don't know that we got that information from the health district. And I know that they're just commercial, mainly, but I think that just getting that information that we didn't get either from them, and those three, I think, questions, 3 bullet points that they had on that one paper. Maybe talk about that next time.
Yeah, so I think if I'm hearing you, Mary Beth, you're saying we need to continue to kind of dive deeper into the conversation with the blight department, have them be present so that there's more conversation, we can dialogue and build together, and then sort of getting a little bit of an update on what's maybe going on with the rat abatement program plan from the health district. I know we kind of talked a little bit about that, I think 2 meetings ago, but just like seeing where
Right.
that's at would
Right,
be a nice
because
next
there
step.
was like 3 bullet points, and then there was that they had did some research that we didn't know about, and then we thought we'd maybe try to get them to come. I don't know who did the research. They had was it a grant writer or something? So yeah, just to get information from like finish off that,
Right. Okay.
and get the building, and we can move forward.
And to piggyback off that, Mary Beth, that's why we're emphasizing so much that these meetings need to happen in public. Those were a lot of one-on-one meetings that ended up being telephone relayed to us, and there were a lot of details lost, and he said, she said, and everybody left last meeting, I think, more confused on what that policy was moving forward. So that is why it is so important to have everyone who's going to be taking a part of this to be here and be having this conversation with us.
Yep.
Any other suggestions, recommendations, thoughts on how we could be effective? I think I have a vision for this, so I want to get us to get to a point where we have the information we need so that we could start designing what this program looks like, right? And go into kind of like that design mode. But I think in terms of information, that's where I'm looking to you all to see, are there any gaps on our end? Do we need more information? Do we feel like we need to have additional conversations, have additional people at the meetings so that we can have these discussions? Like, is there anybody else missing from the equation?
Right, because I think that, at least then we can say, okay, this is what's happening in the commercial aspect of the rodent issues, right? And then this is what's happening when it comes to the resident rodent issues.
Right, yeah, it gives us that holistic approach, right? That holistic view of like, we've talked to everybody, we know what's happening on every aspect of public life around this issue. Yeah.
Hi,
Correct.
I'm on CSIS. This is Tanya, but I'm on CSIS because I don't know. I can't manage this technology this late. So, I know. But I want to piggyback off of Mary Beth, what you said about the health department and the grant. And so what was occurring to me when I was thinking about this is the seismic shift in COVID and rats, right? So as I'm doing research, I'm finding, like in Chicago and cities and areas around us. But what I'm seeing is that how many restaurants have closed? How does it affect the granting? And can we as residential areas kind of enfold in that sort of COVID rat abatement granting for that? Because I know that before there was COVID, that restaurants bared the majority of the burden of rat abatement, right? And so that's why we're in the position we're in. So I wonder if there's numbers attached to like who's open, who's closed, and who's closing, like what the rotation of that is. Because we have at least 2 or 3 years into this pandemic before we see normalcy, or whatever that word is. I'm not sure I said that right. But so that was like, I wanted to add that to what Mary Beth was saying, and thanks for listening.
And I agree. I think that also there was, oh God, what was that other, I think the BDC said that there was, I don't know if Scott mentioned that, but somebody mentioned about some funding that businesses get that could possibly be used for businesses to continue to do their whatever, their yearly abatement or whatever it was. So maybe, make sure that we have that information as well. So we have all our dots on our I's and T's crossed.
Yeah, I think I definitely shared that specific program with the committee, and we can bring it to the next meeting just to share it with the public to let folks know that is available when folks are awarded that funding, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like the next 2 key points are ensuring that we get somebody from the Blight Department to attend, maybe getting an update from the health district, seeing if David could attend to kind of share a little bit about what's been going on since the last meeting, and since I know there's been meetings outside of this space too happening on that issue, and then moving on from there to see if, based on those conversations, we're starting to feel more confident that we could have a discussion about what it could look like, how we can imagine a program that would be more robust, more comprehensive here in Berwyn. I think another thing that I would want to do that I've been talking to some residents about is just kind of present to you guys sort of the takeaways from the alley cleanups, because if we were to pursue, to Tanya's idea, maybe creating some type of structure around it so that residents can apply for it, very similar to the Oak Park application they have for alley cleanups and block cleanups. It'd be nice for you all to see sort of how they worked, how they were effective, the things that happened during them, so folks understand them a little bit more. So that could be a small portion of it, just running through some of the data, some of the achievements of that, so that residents have a chance to kind of talk about their experience with it. And so those can be the major agenda points, if folks are okay with that.
Sounds good to me.
Cece and Mary Beth, are you guys good with that?
Yes,
Okay. All right. So
thank you.
thank you all. Thank you. So once again, thank you, Vaughn, for coming out. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming out. Appreciate you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Stay safe and healthy, guys.
And just heads up, we're still